Welcome. I'm Linda Kravitz, an expert in the biology, neuroscience, and psychology of burnout. In this module, we're exploring burnout, what it really is, and why it's more than just being tired. Burnout has become a buzzword in our modern, fast-paced world. You might picture an overworked teacher or a stressed-out student who feels completely drained, both mentally and physically. In fact, burnout is now so common that it's recognized by health organizations as a real syndrome caused by chronic stress. We'll break down the science of burnout, from how it's defined to what it does to your brain and body, and discuss why a full recovery requires more than a good night's sleep. Think of your mind and body like a car engine. Burnout isn't just running out of gas for a day, it's when the engine overheats from constant overdrive. By the end, you'll understand what burnout actually is and why it feels so overwhelming. Let's start by defining burnout. The World Health Organization classifies burnout as a workplace stress syndrome. It results from chronic stress that hasn't been successfully managed. Importantly, burnout is not just feeling a bit tired or having a bad day. It's marked by 3 key symptoms: exhaustion, extreme energy depletion, cynicism or mental distance. You start feeling negative or detached from your work or studies, and reduced efficacy. You feel like you can't accomplish anything or that your performance is suffering. In plain language, burnout is when stress has pushed you past your limit. You're not only physically tired, but also emotionally drained and mentally checked out. To put it another way, burnout is what happens when you cross the line between really tired and too exhausted to function. It's a total collapse of your normal coping capacity. You might feel empty, unmotivated, or trapped in a cycle of dullness and dread. Unlike ordinary fatigue, burnout doesn't go away after a weekend of rest. It lingers and can even worsen if the underlying stress continues. Psychologists describe it as a mind-body syndrome. It starts with psychological stress, but over time it affects your biology too. Burnout isn't officially a disease on its own, but it's a clear signal that your mind and body are overwhelmed by chronic stress. To understand burnout, we need to look at stress and how our bodies react to it. Burnout is essentially the result of chronic stress, so let's quickly revisit the stress response. Imagine something stressful happens. Say you nearly get in a car accident, or you receive an angry email from your boss. Immediately, your brain's alarm center, the amygdala, kicks into gear. It sends a distress signal to your hypothalamus, the brain's command center for the body, which in turn flips on your sympathetic nervous system, better known as the fight or flight response. In a split second, stress hormones like adrenaline flood your system, making your heart race and your blood pressure rise. This is your body preparing to fight danger or run away. At the same time, another system called the HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is activated to keep you on high alert. Your adrenal glands release cortisol, the primary stress hormone, which helps keep you vigilant and ready to respond. In small doses, this fight or flight response is helpful. It's a survival mechanism that evolved to protect us from immediate threats. However, problems arise when this alarm stays stuck in the on position. In modern life, our fight or flight response often gets triggered by things that aren't truly life or death, like work deadlines or social pressures. The issue is, our bodies can't tell the difference between a tiger chasing us and an overflowing inbox. The stress alarm keeps ringing even when the threat is just an exam or bills to pay. Over time, this constant activation of the stress response leads to burnout. What happens when that stress alarm never fully shuts off? Chronic stress, the kind that leads to burnout, actually changes the structure and function of your brain. Think of stress hormones like cortisol as weather. An occasional storm is fine, but constant storms start eroding the landscape. Under prolonged stress, key brain areas start to remodel in unhealthy ways. The prefrontal cortex, which is the brain's manager for planning, focus, and impulse control, begins to shrink in volume. High cortisol over weeks or months can literally cause the neurons to wither. This is why burned-out individuals often struggle to concentrate or make decisions. The part of the brain that normally helps with those tasks has taken a hit. It's like the brain's CEO is chronically overworked and downsizing. The amygdala, your brain's fear and emotion center, tends to grow more reactive and even enlarge under chronic stress. In burnout, the amygdala is on a hair trigger. You might feel on edge or easily startled, because the brain's alarm system has become extra sensitive. The brain's smoke detector gets cranked up to high sensitivity, going off at the slightest hint of trouble. The hippocampus, which is crucial for memory and mood regulation, can shrink and weaken as well. Long-term stress and high cortisol are linked to a smaller hippocampus, which may explain why burnout can come with memory issues like forgetfulness and mood disturbances. You might feel emotionally numb or forgetful. That's the hippocampus feeling the strain. In short, burnout isn't just in your head, it's in your brain. Chronic stress essentially wires your brain for survival mode at the expense of things like clear thinking and memory. The brain's balance shifts. The rational, creative parts lose volume, while the stress and fear centers bulk up. This makes it even harder to break out of the burnout cycle because our capacity to cope rationally is reduced. The good news is that these effects aren't necessarily permanent. With recovery and stress reduction, brain structure can partially rebound. But it illustrates how deep burnout's impact goes. It's biological, not just psychological. Alongside structural brain changes, burnout involves a dysregulated nervous system. Remember the sympathetic nervous system fight or flight we discussed? In burnout, many people get stuck in sympathetic overdrive. It's like the body's gas pedal is floored all the time. Normally, when a stress passes, our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. The parasympathetic system, often called rest and digest, is like the brake pedal. It calms the body back down, slowing the heart rate and sending out relaxation signals. A major player in this calming system is the vagus nerve, a long nerve that connects the brain to the heart, lungs, and gut. The vagus nerve's job is to disengage fight or flight and signal safety, bringing your body back to balance. In burnout, this balance between the two systems, sympathetic and parasympathetic, gets thrown off. Chronic stress can lead to reduced vagal tone, meaning the vagus nerve and parasympathetic signals aren't doing their calming job as effectively. It's as if the brake pads are worn out. You might experience this as constantly feeling tense, anxious, or having a racing heartbeat even when you're trying to relax. Some people describe feeling wired but tired, exhausted, yet unable to fully unwind. Over time, if the body stays in high gear too long, it may even flip into a shutdown mode. Like a circuit breaker tripping, you become numb, extremely fatigued, and detached. This is sometimes called the freeze response. Both extremes are signs of a nervous system in overload. Burnout doesn't just change brain structure and the nervous system, it also throws off your brain's chemical messengers or neurotransmitters. These are the molecules that neurons use to communicate, and they regulate mood, motivation, and energy. Under chronic stress, the levels and balance of several key neurotransmitters can be disrupted. Dopamine, often called the reward or motivation chemical, can plummet or its receptors become less responsive. This leads to that classic burnout feeling of blunted motivation and pleasure. Things you used to enjoy or feel proud of barely register now. It's similar to what happens in depression. You feel a kind of anhedonia, an inability to feel joy, because the dopamine circuit isn't firing properly. Serotonin, a key neurotransmitter for mood stability and well-being, is also affected. Chronic stress can alter serotonin function. In some cases, stress may initially boost serotonin release as the brain tries to cope, but over time this system can become dysregulated. Many people with burnout report mood swings, irritability, or feelings of sadness that resemble depression. Serotonin is like the mood thermostat. Chronic stress can break the thermostat, leading to emotional highs and lows or a constant low mood. GABA, the brain's primary inhibitory calming neurotransmitter, tends to decrease under prolonged stress. Low GABA makes it difficult to calm down, contributing to anxiety, restlessness, and difficulty sleeping. You may feel like you can't ever shut your brain off. That's a GABA shortage effect, akin to losing the brakes on neuronal activity. Finally, cortisol and adrenaline, while not neurotransmitters but hormones, are also dysregulated. Cortisol is released during stress to help reduce inflammation and give a quick energy boost, but when it stays high continuously, the body can become cortisol resistant. Paradoxically, some people with long-term burnout later show low cortisol output. The body's stress system crashes after being overworked, a bit like an adrenal fatigue scenario. In either case, too high for too long or abnormally low, cortisol is dysregulated, which affects energy, sleep, and even mood. In summary, burnout leaves your brain's chemistry in a state of chaos. The feel-good and calming chemicals like dopamine and GABA are depleted, while stress chemicals run rampant. This chemical imbalance is why burnout can feel like hitting a wall. You're not just imagining that you can't push yourself anymore. Your brain is literally low on the neurochemical fuel needed for motivation and calm. It's also why simple rest might not immediately fix how you feel, because these chemical systems take time to recover and rebalance. Burnout doesn't stop at the mind and brain, it manifests throughout the body. Chronic stress can wreak havoc on many physical systems. Ever notice how you get sick after a big crunch period or during extreme stress? That's no coincidence. In the early phase of stress, cortisol actually helps dampen inflammation and can boost immune function briefly. But with chronic stress, the body essentially gets desensitized to cortisol and the immune system starts to falter. People with burnout often report frequent colds, flus, or other infections because consistently high cortisol leads to a weakened immune response. Your body's defenses are impaired, making it harder to fight off pathogens. It's as if being in constant fight or flight mode diverts resources away from routine maintenance like immunity. Over time, you might also heal slower from injuries or illnesses due to this compromised immune state. Additionally, chronic stress and burnout promote a state of inflammation in the body. Studies have found that people with burnout have higher levels of inflammatory markers. In burnout, your body may feel like it's fighting an unseen enemy all the time. You could experience muscle aches, headaches, or gastrointestinal issues as a result. Some research even suggests burnout might contribute to conditions like hypertension or type 2 diabetes indirectly via stress pathways. Finally, after extended periods of overdrive, the adrenal glands, which produce stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, may start to lag. It's as if they can't sustain the constant demand. People at this stage of burnout often describe feeling utterly exhausted no matter how much they sleep. Morning fatigue, salt and sugar cravings, and low blood pressure can be signs that the stress system is dysregulated. The result is feeling flat, burned out, and often experiencing other hormonal imbalances. Burnout can also bring sleep disturbances, changes in appetite, chest pains, palpitations, tension headaches, and digestive problems. All of these are the body's distress signals that it's overwhelmed. By now, it's clear that burnout is a complex mind-body state. So if you're burned out, is the solution just to rest? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Sleep and time off are essential, but often not sufficient by themselves to fix burnout. Why? Because if your body and brain are still stuck in survival mode, just sleeping more won't automatically flip the switch. Many burned out people have experienced this. You take a vacation or a break, and you do feel somewhat better, but the exhaustion and anxiety creep back as soon as you return to the stressful environment or even think about it. To truly recover, your brain and body need convincing signals that the danger is over and it's safe to relax. This is where the concepts of safety signals and nervous system regulation come into play. Remember the vagus nerve and parasympathetic system. To recover from burnout, you need to actively engage that system. In other words, you have to tell your body, in a language it understands, that it can exit fight or flight mode. Simply lying in bed while your mind still races with worry doesn't accomplish that. Techniques that help include psychological detachment from work or stressors, truly unplugging mentally, not checking work emails on vacation, or setting firm boundaries. Also, practices like deep breathing exercises, meditation, gentle yoga, or mindfulness activate the relaxation response, stimulating the vagus nerve and sending a clear signal that it's safe now. It's like manually applying the brakes to slow down a speeding car. Positive social interactions are powerful safety signals too. Spending time with supportive friends or family, talking to a therapist, or joining a community can physiologically calm you down. Lastly, restorative activities like taking a walk in nature, enjoying a hobby, or creative expression help shift your body into a parasympathetic state. The important idea is that recovery is an active process. It's about regulating your nervous system and addressing the root causes of stress, not just taking a nap. You have to work to restore balance by rebuilding depleted neurotransmitters, letting cortisol patterns normalize, and strengthening your vagal brakes. In essence, recovery equals rest plus safety plus restoration, not just sleep. Burnout isn't just an individual issue, it's become a widespread public health concern. Let's look at some recent data to understand how common burnout is, especially among certain groups like students and educators who often face intense, chronic stress. For educators, surveys have shown alarmingly high rates of burnout. For instance, nearly half of K through 12 teachers report feeling burned out very often or always, with college faculty not far behind. These high rates contribute to teacher shortages and are linked to the immense pressure educators face, a situation worsened by the shifts during the pandemic. Students, too, are deeply affected. Research has indicated that a significant portion of college students suffer from academic burnout, with some studies finding that more than half exhibit symptoms like emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced effectiveness in their studies. Moreover, burnout extends to the broader workforce, affecting many sectors from healthcare to technology. What this tells us is that burnout is a major challenge that cuts across various professions and demographics. Recognizing just how widespread it is can help reduce stigma and promote better strategies for managing chronic stress in our workplaces and schools. We've covered a lot, so let's wrap up the key takeaways. Burnout is a real multidimensional syndrome. It's not just in your imagination, and it's not a sign of personal weakness. It's what happens when chronic stress overloads your system to the point that your mind, brain, and body can no longer keep up. We've seen that burnout has well-defined characteristics: exhaustion, cynicism, and inefficacy, and is recognized by major health organizations. We also delved into how it affects the brain, from shrinking the prefrontal cortex to overactivating the amygdala and impairing memory centers, and how it disrupts bodily functions such as hormonal balance, immune response, and inflammatory processes. Importantly, burnout is more than just being tired. Normal tiredness goes away with rest, but burnout doesn't because the underlying stress response systems remain in dysfunction. Recovery from burnout requires intentional strategies to restore balance, from sending safety signals to activating the parasympathetic system, to engaging in restorative practices and seeking social support. The encouraging news is that recovery is possible. With proper care, the brain and body can rebalance and recover just as they did before the chronic stress set in. Recognizing burnout as a legitimate condition is the first step toward recovery. Whether you're a student, educator, or professional, understanding what burnout is can empower you to take action and foster environments that reduce chronic stress. Remember, burnout is real and serious, but with the right approach, you can regain your well-being. Thank you for joining this module. And here's to finding a healthier balance in your life.